Hello again, welcome to the Memoir channel. My name is Nikki Smart, and today I'm going to be speaking with Ona Gritz, hope I'm saying that right, about her beautiful memoir, Everywhere I Look. So this memoir, it has already won all these awards. It won the Story Trade Nonfiction Book of the Year, a Pencraft Best Book Award in Nonfiction. It won a Reader's Choice Gold Award. I mean, it's won several awards, and deservedly so. Now, I think Ona is actually a poet at heart. She has her Masters of Arts in Poetry. She has written several poetry books, children's books, young adult books, and she's written two memoirs. I believe this is her second one. So, obviously, a very talented wordsmith. So, let's go talk to Ona and find out a little bit more. Hello, Ona. Welcome to the Memoir channel.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm really happy to be here.
So your memoir is lovely, and I'm very sorry that you had to go through all of that because, yeah, that's some very difficult stuff.
Uh,
And I wanted to ask if you could just give sort of a brief overview of what your memoir is about.
sure. It's a tribute and an exploration of my sister and her life.
Hmm.
Um, she was 6 years older than I and was treated very differently in our family home. And I was the good child, treated well. She was not treated well, and she was perceived as the wild child, the one my parents couldn't handle.
Hmm.
And she started running away at a really young age when I was 6 and she was 12. And we never really lived together for very long after that. And I would see her intermittently, but didn't know a lot about her life. But I knew it was rough. And then when she was in her mid-20s, she met a really nice man and started to settle down. And then they brought in a couple into their home who murdered them and their baby. He was 11
Hmm.
months old, my nephew, and my sister was 30 weeks pregnant. So um, she had a little girl that would have been born really soon. And it's not so much a traditional true crime memoir in the sense that,
Hmm.
just like I did right now, I give the whodunit away right
Hmm.
away because
Hmm.
that's not what I was
What
interested
it's
in
about. Yes.
investigating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really wanted to understand my sister's life as much as I could, including my family's role in the road she wound up on.
Right. Right. I mean, I read some other interviews that you did, and I thought a lot of it was really interesting. And one was that you said you'd written it, but it kind of had the wrong structure, and you had to redo it. And that the person who was helping you said, "But you're not in this,
Yes,
right?"
yeah, which is still baffling to me that I missed that in my own work because I was reading so many memoirs and I'm such a lover of the genre, but
Hmm.
I also I came to writing as a poet, and I think
Yeah.
there's a certain amount of restraint that's required in a good poem where you leave a lot for the reader to discover on their own. And I brought that into my memoir without realizing how much of my emotional life wasn't on the page.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just let the moment or the image speak,
Hmm.
and think that was enough.
Right. Um, and then also, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the braided structure, because I
Mm,
thought that was such a nice word to call it, the braided structure, where you're kind of like weaving it all together with, so it's the past and the present, and yeah.
yeah.
Was
And that
was was that fairly easy once you got into that style, or once you decided that's the way it's going to be? Did it flow pretty easily for you?
I understood almost immediately that there was something right that happened when I started the story basically the night before the killings, because I spent that
Mhm.
evening with the people who had perpetrated the crime,
Right.
and and then putting that up against our childhood, so that the reader could get to know who we were as a family and what we
Hmm.
were like as sisters together early on. I felt how right that felt, but it took me a really long time to understand how to braid it, that it wasn't simply past, present,
Hmm.
um, because there's about a 30-year gap between my actual memories of, my emotions immediately afterward and what I learned about what happened and how I handled it emotionally. And then I kind of shelved it all
Right.
and lived my life, had let a lot of my memories fade. And then when they all came flooding back, which coincided with, losing the last member of my immediate family and
Hmm.
really being alone with all my losses and being able to feel the first loss and also not having to worry about how would my family feel, how would my parents feel if they
Right.
saw what I was discovering and revealing. Um, but anyway, so there was this 30-year gap and I didn't know what to do with it. And it took an outside editor to tell me, you know, that's not one long thread with a hole in it. That's actually the spine of your story, and you
That's
need to
part of
bring
it.
that up much sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is you needed that freedom to really dig into it before you allowed yourself to fully explore it, your grief, I mean. Yeah.
The grief, and also to learn uh, truths about my family that were hard to look at,
Hmm.
in terms of decisions that my parents made on my sister's behalf,
Right.
um, and why.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and I wanted to ask, I have some questions here, sorry. Oh, I was going to say, so I guess this is it's kind of delayed grief, and I guess it's actually I mean, I was looking it up a little bit, and they said that sometimes with delayed grief you get all these physical symptoms too, and it was things like headaches and digestive problems and fatigue and sleep disturbances, which sounds pretty normal almost in today's
Sounds like
world.
life.
But I was wondering if since now you're working through it, I know this only came out a year ago, but have you noticed a difference in your physical well-being having released some of the stuff that you kept with you for, such a long period of time?
That's a really good question. I still feel really difficult things in my stomach.
Uh-huh.
um, but and my sleep is still wacky. And I attribute that to this kind of vigilance that I had as a kid and
Hmm.
my sister disappearing when I was sleeping, where I still have a lot of trouble winding down at night, sort of trusting sleep. But there's something more settled in me emotionally.
Hmm.
Um,
Good.
Having felt the grief, having spent all this time with her, because it took me 10 years to write this book.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. So how old were you more or less when the event happened? You were 19.
yeah,
And then when you started writing, how old more or less were you then? In your 30s?
40s.
In your 40s?
I was
Wow,
in my
it
40s.
is a long gap, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a huge gap. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, it's not that that was the first thing you'd written. You'd been writing all kinds of everything, right? Up until then,
Yeah. And she was creeping into my writing in small ways, but I didn't let myself look at the full story. I
right?
didn't believe it was mine to look at somehow.
Hmm. Interesting. Because I remember reading somewhere too that you said on the in the court case, you were sitting in the courtroom, and then apparently you introduced yourself to Ray's mother,
Hmm.
but you'd written that in a poem that you went home and wrote, but you actually had no recollection of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's it's quite amazing how the brain can I think it's a kind of a protection thing, isn't it? It just protects you from, you can't allow that much in because it's just too much. So we're just going to block it out for a while till you can deal with it.
Yeah. And I think that, as a kid, I learned early. Actually, my sister taught me to dissociate.
Hmm.
We loved
Hmm.
pretend games, and I
Yeah.
brought that ability to not be present into my life, and as a way to not face the hardest things.
Wow. So, okay, this is good because this means when you first started writing and they said you're not actually in here, that's because you were still sort of in this disassociated state. So I'm wondering, what was it like for you to actually start writing, really thinking about your own emotions and your own feelings, and what was that like?
You know, I really resisted it at first.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't doubt that the editor, it was the author Lily Danziger who had talked to me about this, and but I just thought I don't know how to do this. I don't want to go there. I don't want to look at who I was in that family, and then and I felt like I didn't know how.
Hmm.
So I spent some time working on structural things and other aspects. And then I gave myself, I think it was 2 weeks to just catch up on some other projects I had and put it on the back burner. And then I did a poetry workshop online, and something about the prompt that inspired me to write a poem
Hmm.
directed to Angie, which is something that you do commonly in poetry, right? A
Right.
direct address where, using the second person.
Hmm.
And I wrote that poem. And in that moment, I thought, oh, that's what I need to do. Because it had been written in a more traditional way, the memoir.
Hmm.
And I went back to it and I wrote the story to her. And as soon as I did that, it allowed me to just confide in her, be more honest, talk
Lovely.
about how it felt for me in moments that we shared or in moments where she wasn't there, but she was the subject of a conversation, or, I
Hmm.
just, it gave me a way to approach it.
It's lovely and it works beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. It's so nice when you find that little way of doing it, and it just like, then it comes. And I think I even read somewhere you said that when you were sort of doing your investigative work, you suddenly had this little clue, and you said you don't really know where it came from, but you think that was her coming through for you.
I really do.
Right.
I really do. I was on the
Yeah.
phone with our grade school. I was looking for her school records, just, what was the chance that they would still exist? But I thought it was worth a try. And the woman put me on, no, the woman asked me what was the last school she had been to, because that would be who had her records. And I didn't know the name of her junior high. I went to a different school that was brand new.
Hmm.
And I remembered, she was so much older. 6 years was a lot
It's
when,
a lot when you're young. Yeah.
right, when you are six. So she went off to some other school in town where she had to take a bus. I don't know if I ever knew its name. And the woman put me on hold for a moment, and the number 180 just popped into my head out of nowhere.
Ah,
And she came back and she, said, she told me she found these index cards with our names on them from when we were first put in, registered in school. And then she said, well, is there anything else I can help you with? And I just said, well, one other thing. There's not a school called 180, is there? And it was junior high 180. And the
wow.
thing that feels so magical about it is her records were there. And
Wow.
those records answered so many questions for me that it really feels like she wanted me to have
It's
that.
beautiful. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love when stuff like that happens because it gives you faith in something so much bigger.
Yeah.
And it's very comforting.
It is really comforting. And
Yeah.
it's also helped me believe that, when people have read this book and a lot of people have reached out to
Hmm.
send me notes, that she feels it,
Hmm.
that she feels that her life is being acknowledged.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you maybe read us a part from your memoir?
I would love to. Thank you for asking.
I'm going to put you on a speaker view if I can figure this out. Okay,
Okay.
now it's just you.
Okay, great. One drizzly afternoon, I pulled a plastic bin of curled family photos from the back of my closet and sat on the floor browsing through them. In my favorite picture of you and me together, we're seated at a picnic table. Your hair is styled in a that girl flip. Your bare arms, full and lovely, frame my head as I rest against you, eyes closed in a kind of little sister love doze. Penciled on the back, Hudson, 1970, in Dad's blocky print. Decades had passed since I last thought of our trips to the boarding school with its sprawling grounds and distant mountains. Those visits gave me my first glimpse of your life apart from us, but I didn't really know anything about the place. As I stared at our young faces, I realized that at nearly twice the age you ever got to be, I had no more understanding of your life than I'd had as a 7-year-old girl wandering with you around campus. I laid the photo aside and began to reach for another, but something pulled at me. Couldn't I, if I chose to, learn more? Ethan came home then, bursting through the door, hungry for an after-school snack. As we sat at the table, he described how his teacher had given the class busy work so she could answer her email. She told me I didn't spend enough time on this, he said, taking a sheet of paper from his backpack. But she just wanted me to keep messing with it so she wouldn't have to figure out something else for me to do. I talked to him and read through his work, but all the while I thought about you, sent to that boarding school in Hudson at the very age he was then. By the time Ethan finished his snack, the rain had stopped. He answered a text, got another, and then left as abruptly as he had arrived to meet friends by the pier. Alone again, I opened my laptop and found the number for the public library in Hudson, New York. I'd been a librarian for nearly 15 years by then, but not once had it occurred to me to use my research skills on your behalf. My heart beat hard as I picked up the phone. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was somehow trespassing as I took this step toward the past. Reference, a woman's voice chimed. Hi, I have a question I hope you can answer. My sister attended a boarding school in your town in 1970. Would you know what the name of it might have been? It could have been one of two places, the librarian told me, including right here. This used to be an orphanage, and back then parents sometimes sent their troubled kids here. I glanced at the photo now propped on my desk. A lawn stretched and filled the frame. My sister's school had a large grassy campus. There were picnic tables. That was probably the New York State Training School for Girls. It's a men's prison now, but back then it was a girls' reformatory. A reformatory, I repeated. Of course. Were there red brick buildings, the librarian asked? I don't remember. If there were, it was the training school. When we hung up, I returned to the photo bin. In another picture marked Hudson, you stand in a white miniskirt, smiling at the camera, while I kneel in the grass between your parted legs. Behind us is a brick building. Under the beating sun, it's faded to pink. With just a few keystrokes, I had 2 articles about the training school by a journalist named Nina Bernstein. I printed them out and sank onto the couch, aware that reading them would take me to the other side of something I'd come to count on, a vagueness that had allowed me to let you go.
No, that's very lovely.
Thank you.
Uh, wow. All right, so what are you going to do now? Now that you've written this, how do you follow this up?
Another really good question. I actually worried about that at times when I was working on this book. I felt like working on this book was who I was and was what I was here for. Um, but I've had the opportunity actually, once the book was finished and out on submission, I have been working on some books for teenagers,
Okay.
verse novels, which are novels that are built poem by poem. I've done 2 of those that are out in the world, and I've just submitted one for a slightly younger audience for middle grade readers. So I've been
Oh,
really enjoying that.
oh, good.
Yeah,
So that really is your therapy is writing in one form or another.
yeah,
That's the way you figure things out, right?
it is.
Have
Right.
you
Like the
actually, sorry. You go
No,
and
just like Joan Didion famously said, she writes to know what she thinks.
yeah, because you find it out yourself then, don't you? It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it just sort of tumbles out onto the page. Um, what was I going to ask? Oh, I was going to say, have you actually been for therapy?
I have been,
Hmm.
and in fact, there's a little bit about a unsuccessful therapy that's in my book where I told the therapist after several sessions that my sister had been killed, and it was right afterwards. And um, she seemed very sympathetic and then never asked me about it again. And, I was
Oh,
19 and distraught and
yeah,
had no skills to bring it forth myself.
right. Yeah, that is an unusual sort of, for a therapist, you would think they would want to sort of get into that a little bit,
Yeah.
but it seems quite important.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so you're doing these, and then is there, I mean, if people want to find out more about you, how do they do that? Do you have a website? Do
I
you,
do.
yeah?
Onagritz.com.
Okay, then I'll put that on here. And is there an audio book?
There is an
There
audio
is,
book.
right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought I saw one.
Someone else is reading the story.
Okay,
Um,
that's good to know. So there's an audio book out as well.
yeah.
And then do you have any upcoming sort of events that people could come and actually meet you at or
I don't have anything like that on the calendar right now. I'm doing a show called Open to Hope with some other um, writers who have lost siblings.
Mhm,
I have an essay in an anthology that's coming out now called Loss of a Lifetime. And
mhm.
I think it's the only collection of its kind that's specifically on sibling loss. And we're recording a show this Thursday in New York.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. And then that'll be on your website, I imagine, so people can find out how to watch it and listen in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. How is the book doing?
It feels like it's finding its readers. I, I mean, I don't really know the numbers, but I hear from people all the time,
Right.
which has been
Because I know
really
it's almost a
remarkable.
year, right? What is a year it's been out?
It's just over a year. Yeah, it came out
But I
in
mean, you
April
won
of last year.
you won so many awards. I mean, I feel like congratulations, it's done really well.
Oh, thank you.
And I think sometimes these things sort of gather momentum. It takes a little bit, but yeah. And I think you were saying you're kind of doing a lot of the marketing, you're taking that upon yourself,
Yeah, I worked with a publicist for a few months, but I feel like at this point it's really word of mouth. That's
right?
um,
Yeah. I mean,
how did you discover the book, if I might ask?
oh, that's a question. How did I stumble upon it? It was through someone that I knew, and then I saw it and I started reading it and I went, oh, I like this one. This is good.
Oh,
So, so,
thank
but
you.
I can't quite remember what started me. But I mean, I'm always looking. So no, I think it's beautiful. So congratulations, and I'll put all the things on there. Is there anything else you would like to add? Do you think?
I just really want to thank you for having
Oh,
this channel
you're
and
you're
having a
very
way for
you're very very welcome. Yeah, I feel like there's not really enough platforms for memoir people, is there?
you know.
So yeah, and I find memoir so interesting because it is sort of a therapeutic tool, and you can learn so much by reading somebody else's and how they got through a certain situation. Because I saw that you referenced a whole lot of memoirs all about sibling loss as well,
Mhm.
right? And that's what you're saying. You're doing this anthology now with probably maybe some of those same authors.
Yeah, it's a forgotten grief, when,
Hmm.
and this is something I didn't even realize until I stumbled upon a sibling loss book group online that, um,
Oh,
people are concerned about the parents, how are the parents doing, but they kind of overlook how hard it is on siblings.
that's so true. That's so true. And has it really helped you to be part of that group?
It really has.
Yeah.
It's a club nobody wants to be in, but it's really good to be in it together.
And I imagine that it's ages all across the board,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's actually good to know. Is that something that's you have to be there in person, or is it an online
It's online. They have a website. I think the website is Loss of a Lifetime.
loss of a lifetime? Okay. Yeah, that's a good that's a good thing to put with this, that people can know where to reach out and how to get some help if they're struggling. Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
have resources and they have video clips of all the authors whose books we've talked about.
Hmm. Oh,
And they did talk about Everywhere I Look, so I got to
yeah.
share that with
Yeah.
them.
Oh, and one last question. Sorry. The cover,
Mhm.
that's you and your sister, right?
Me and my sister, and it's actually the the picture that I was describing in
Yes, where you're
the
sitting
segment
between. Hmm.
where I'm in my little sister love doze against her.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a lovely cover. It's very lovely.
Yeah. And this publisher, Apprentice House, it's
Hmm.
that of Loyola University in Maryland. And
Hmm.
it's very unusual because undergraduates do all the work, under the guidance of a really good professor. But so it was designed by an undergraduate.
That's great.
Yeah, she did a
Yeah,
beautiful job. I'm
that's great.
so happy.
So when you said it took you 10 years to write, it wasn't sitting with them for 10 years. You just brought it in once you were done, and then they started helping you and taking it further.
Yeah, it was pretty well polished and
Uh-huh.
ready by the time I
Hmm.
sent it to them.
Hmm.
I did small tweaks and things with them, but
Right, right.
I did make the mistake of submitting it before it was ready,
Yeah,
because you don't always know,
you don't know. No, you don't.
Yeah. And I'm actually really happy that no one took it in its earlier form because it
Right.
would not, it wasn't this book yet. It wasn't the
Yeah,
book it was
yeah,
supposed to be.
yeah. Well, congratulations again. And
Thank you.
thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Nikki.
And if you write more memoirs, please come back.
I don't know if
Okay.
I have it in me, but I definitely will if I do.
All right. Thank you so much.